Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy. And thank you so much for joining me for it. So we had a bit of a surprise last week. They released a trailer and key art for Tales of the Empire, which is an anthology series that is going to be done in the same way as Tales of the Jedi was done. Now, it seems like this is actually the quote-unquote season 2 that's happening, and when the trailer debuted, at the end of it they had the Tales of the Jedi logo and it kind of burned away and said Tales of the Empire instead, which is very dramatic, of course. It is a little bit confusing though, because at Celebration London in 2023 they said there would be a season 2 of Tales of the Jedi, and so yeah, you're kind of expecting Jedi to be involved in this, but only one Jedi is involved in this particular Tales of the Empire situation, and that is Barriss Offee. Barriss Offee, who we last saw at the end of season 5 of the Clone Wars because she had staged an explosion as part of a protest against the Jedi's involvement in the Clone Wars and tried to pin it on Ahsoka Tano, which led to Ahsoka deciding that she was going to leave the Jedi Order. She didn't like the way that they handled her prosecution and persecution for all intents and purposes. And the other half of the storytelling is going to focus on Morgan Elsbeth, who we met in the Mandalorian series at first and then later saw more action with in the Ahsoka series. Now, this Empire anthology is going to follow a similar format to the Jedi anthology, where there's going to be 3 episodes about each character. And based on the trailer, we actually got a pretty good picture of the time periods for Morgan Elsbeth's anthology shorts. One of them is going to take place on Dathomir, and it's going to be in the Clone Wars during the season 4 episodes where General Grievous and the Separatist battle droids came to Dathomir to wipe everyone out. There's actually scenes of Morgan Elsbeth fighting General Grievous, and he's got his lightsabers and she's got 2 scimitar looking things that have been enchanted with Night Sister magic, so she's blocking lightsabers with those. The second anthology episode seems to take place in the back half of the Empire's reign, and it seems like it is going to tell us the story of how Grand Admiral Thrawn, who is not a Grand Admiral at this point, and Morgan Elsbeth joined forces. It's going to be the origin story of their relationship, it seems, and it seems like it's taking place on Corvus, which is the planet where we see Morgan Elsbeth in that chapter of The Mandalorian, chapter 13 from season 2. That's where she had taken up residence and was ruling the joint, which means that she will have been in charge of that city, Caladan, for more than a decade by the time that we meet her in The Mandalorian. And then the third time period takes place sometime after the fall of the Empire, because we see New Republic officials meeting with her, and there's a New Republic transport that then gets destroyed, and there's large fires happening, which may be related to how we find the forest utterly decimated around the city of Caladan when we see it in The Mandalorian, that these may be the fires that burned that forest down. On the Barriss Offee side of the anthology, we don't really yet from the trailer have a clear idea of what her 3 stories are going to be or what time periods they're going to happen in. We have an idea of at least one of them, which involves her getting recruited, shockingly, into the Inquisitorius. That story seems to be taking place very soon after the fall of the Republic, and we see the 4th sister, who we first met in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, or at least we saw in live action in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. Yeah, she's the one who is actually bringing Barriss Offee out of a prison cell and saying, hey, I got an offer for you, and that offer, of course, is to become an Inquisitor. There's some training involved, which includes a face-off with the Grand Inquisitor himself, and there's also a competition to become part of the Inquisitorius, which involves 2 people getting thrown into a pit with what looks like an ever shrinking dome that will definitely fry you if it touches you, and 1 lightsaber, so 2 people are pitted against each other. It's kind of reminiscent of the idea about how the Emperor's Royal Guard, if you wanted to be one of the Emperor's Royal Guard, ultimately you go through training, and then finally there's a situation where 2 of them have to fight, and only the winner who survives is able to go into the Royal Guard. The other one just gets killed. So similar kind of scenario here. And we get to see the sort of induction ceremony where Barriss gets to meet her new master, and it is, of course, none other than Darth Vader. We don't actually get to see Vader's helmet. We just hear him breathing and walking by as everybody is kneeling and then standing facing him. And of course, you have to wonder if there's going to be some sort of reaction from Vader about Barriss, because Anakin Skywalker knew Barriss back in the day, and it's not like her face is masked or anything like that. So yeah, certainly opens up a possibility of drama there. Now, we don't know if Vader's going to speak in here or if he's just there to look imposing and have a brief cameo and gone, but we do know that James Earl Jones has officially retired from voicing Darth Vader, and yet there are folks out there who have been voicing Darth Vader in other media, and then there's the whole re-speecher thing. I hope they go to somebody else voicing him, like Scott Lawrence, for example, who voiced him for the Vader Immortal VR situation. And speaking of voices, a lot of familiar names are going to be participating in this, which is very cool, including Diana Lee Inosanto, who is playing Morgan Elsbeth. Meredith Salinger, who was the voice of Barriss Offee in the Clone Wars, is returning to voice her for this. Raya Kilstead, who played the fourth sister in the Obi-Wan Kenobi series, will voice the character here. Jason Isaacs, who is the voice of the Grand Inquisitor for Star Wars Rebels, is voicing the Grand Inquisitor here. Lars Mikkelsen is back to playing Thrawn. Matthew Wood is back to playing General Grievous. And even Wing Ti Chow, who played Governor Wing at the end of that episode, The Jedi on in Caladan on Corvus, right, who became the governor at the end of the episode once they deposed Morgan Elsbeth. He's actually doing the voice of Wing in that third anthology episode of Morgan Elsbeth's story as well. Now, all the episodes are going to drop on May 4th, so happy Star Wars Day to all of us. But that does kind of open up a little bit of a question, because we've been talking about the possibility of something happening late summer, early fall for Star Wars storytelling, and it seemed like whatever the sequel to Tales of the Jedi would be in the right place for that. But now that seems to be not happening, because this is dropping right after the end of the Bad Batch and right before the Acolyte picks up. So what the heck else is going to happen? Or is this going to be part of the rationalization of content production that they keep talking about at Disney Plus? It seems to open up some questions for us, and I hope there's something else that's going to surprise us later on this year. Oh, and there's one other thing I wanted to flag for you. So that scene where Vader comes in and they're like, meet your new master, and there are 4 Inquisitors there. One of them is the fourth sister. One of them is Barriss. The other 2 Inquisitors, one of them is the Inquisitor that showed up in the Tales of the Jedi episode where Ahsoka was confronted on that planet after her escape from the finale of the Clone Wars series, right? And that's the one that she eventually kills. So that one showed up in this little lineup. And then the other one appears to be Merrick from the Ahsoka series, the one that was also chasing down Ahsoka and Sabine Wren, and that somehow when he or she was killed, the green mist came out of their body armor, spacesuit uniform, whatever. So yeah, gonna possibly find out a little bit more about Merrick in this series, which is pretty cool. So that's what I've got for you about Tales of the Empire, and that is going to do it for this episode of the podcast. And if you enjoy the show, please leave a rating or review if you haven't already. Please subscribe or like or join or follow, whatever the app option presents for you. Please tell anyone you know who needs a daily dose of Star Wars joy in their life to check this out. And if you want to help support this show and its creation and production, me as a one-man show, you can do that at patreon.com/SW7X7. And it just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for this episode as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyrighted by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.